Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's start our video with a story in which our OP working the register at a fast food chain has a run-in with an entitled customer. This time, a vet who wasn't too pleased about a 5% difference in his discount. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. I deserve the full 15% off. Okay, so for context, I do believe that our military vets deserve many things and are entitled to their discounts, and I'm so grateful that they serve our country. But if you act like an entitled a-hole, I'm not helping you or going to treat you with kindness. And that's my general consensus for everyone. So let me begin by stating I used to work at a fast food chain that rhymes with Whack-Donald's. I didn't overly hate the job, but it made me hate people and makes me get angry at people who I see mistreating fast food workers or retail people. Now, our store, though it still abided by the Whack-Donald's company guidelines, it was independently owned and the owners could have their own separate policies and guidelines as well as the company ones. And unfortunately, that means we did not always carry the same prices or discounts or meal values as the other stores. One of these happened to be the vet discount. The other stores had a discount of 15%, while our owners made it for our store to be 10%. Now, one day I was working the register and an older gentleman came in. I got through the whole transaction when he suddenly asked for a military discount. I, of course, gave it to him, cashed him out, and thanked him for his service. He kind of just made a face at me before snatching the receipt out of my hand and going to the soda machine for his drink. Not a minute goes by and his food's ready, but he's standing there scanning his receipt. I didn't think there was a problem, so I just kept bagging food and calling out orders. I went to hand him his bagged food when he stopped me by putting his hand up in the stop way people do. And then it went as follows. Me, magical, EV, entitled vet. EV, what the hell is this? Thrusting small receipt in my face. Me, I'm sorry, sir, I don't. EV, where the hell is my discount? Me, sir, I apologize if you couldn't spot it on your receipt, but right at the bottom it should show the 10% added on to and the amount taken out for. EV, excuse me? Me, I'm sorry, EV, isn't the discount 15%? Me, oh no, sir, I do apologize, but our discount here is only. EV, in the Whack-Donald's down over on Abernathy, one of the company-ran stores, it's a 15% discount. Me, yes, sir, I'm sorry, but our discount here is only 10% due to the owner's policy. Look at that, he let me finish speaking for once. EV, I deserve the full 15. Me, I'm sorry, sir, but. EV, you know what? I'm gonna call corporate. It's unfair for you to shave 5% off the discount. Me, I'm sorry to hear that, sir. If you'd like, I was going to give him our store number and the number to call to complain, as I too felt it was unfair to lower our vet discount. But at this point, I was also getting sick of being interrupted and yelled at. And before I could even finish my sentence, he started to cuss and scream, and my GM came from the front before anyone could say anything. He chucked his full soda and hit me on the left side of my face. Quite hard, if I do say so myself, and flipped the managers and everyone off before storming out. Now I'm standing there, his food still in my hand as I hadn't handed it to him yet, and completely covered in Coke with my face stinging and just exhausted. My manager gave me some napkins and told me to go in the back and get a new shirt, and I did. After getting most of it off me, I threw my hair up into a bun and walked out front. I was approached by one of our regulars. He was older than that gentleman, but also a vet, and he apologized to me and said he hoped that didn't change my idea of vets. And it didn't. I have a grandfather who's also a veteran, which I told him. And he told me some joke, which I can't remember, but it did make me laugh. We never did see that guy again or hear from corporate, which I'm glad, but it definitely made me realize that apparently some veterans can also act like entitled a-holes. Added edit. Yes, technically it was assault, but I couldn't do anything because the police had been called before on someone else who'd thrown a drink or food, and they said they can't do anything unless they physically touched us. So if I could have pressed charges, I would have. Wow, he just full-on assaulted you to save what, 25 cents? What a rude and entitled person. And our second story. Wealthy neighbor removed about 50 trees from my property. A few years back, I was approached by my new neighbor in Charlottetown. He just bought 2 pieces of land, one right next to my property and the other behind it. The problem? His land was landlocked, completely boxed in by mine and a couple of other neighbors' private land. Frustrated by the lack of access, he showed up at my doorstep with what he thought was a brilliant solution. "Look," he said, trying to sound casual, "I've got this land right here, and I'd love to buy just a small piece of yours. It'll connect my properties, and I'll give you—" He paused, throwing out a number so low I almost laughed in his face. "How about ridiculously low amount? It's a good deal." I blinked at him. "That's not even close to what the land is worth. Thanks, but no thanks." He clearly didn't like that answer, but backed off for the time being. Then he tried another approach. A few days later, he suggested he could clear up some deadfall in my woods, claiming it would improve the look of my land and, make it easier for him to eventually build his house behind my property. "I've already done some cleaning near my house," I said cautiously, "but anything dead, fine. Let's talk about it and figure out what's okay to remove." Sure, he said with a smile, but something about the whole situation felt off. A week later, I decided to check things out. Call it a gut feeling, but I needed to make sure nothing had been messed with. When I walked back to the wooded area, my jaw dropped. Gone. 50 trees, healthy standing trees had been cut down, stumps littering the landscape where my woods used to be. I stormed over to his place fuming. "What the hell happened to my trees? We talked about clearing deadfall, not ripping down live trees." He shrugged and had the nerve to say, "Oh, that? Yeah, that must have been an accident. My contractor must have misunderstood." "An accident? 50 trees don't disappear by accident," I shouted. "You had no right to do this." He looked at me, playing dumb like he didn't understand the magnitude of what he'd done. "Come on, man, it's just a few trees. I thought we agreed—" "We didn't agree on anything like this," I cut him off. "You're going to fix this or pay for it. End of story." After that, I didn't waste any more time. I called my lawyer immediately, gathered all the evidence I could, and set things in motion. I wasn't about to let some rich jerk destroy my property without consequences. Update. Fast forward to court. My neighbor, despite his wealth, didn't have a leg to stand on. The evidence was clear. 50 trees, many of them decades old, had been removed without my consent, and the accident excuse wasn't holding water in front of the judge. The trial dragged on for months, but eventually the court ruled in my favor. Not only was I awarded a significant settlement for the damage he caused, far more than the laughable $5,000 he originally offered, but the judge also ordered him to pay for the restoration of the property. And the cherry on top? He's now on the hook for replanting the trees, a task that's going to cost him a small fortune. As I walked out of the courtroom, my lawyer gave me a pat on the back. He thought his money could buy him whatever he wanted, huh? "Not this time," I said with a smirk. Now every time I look at those freshly planted trees, I feel a sense of satisfaction. He tried to bulldoze his way through my land, and instead, he got what he deserved. So yeah, rich or not, some lines can't be crossed. And our last story, the HOA and the beach house. I worked for the same company for over 30 years and finally decided to retire. Before I left, they gave me 2 months of paid vacation because I hadn't taken any time off in the last 3 years. I figured this was the perfect chance to take a road trip across the country and visit old friends and family. I've got a small plot of land by the ocean in California where I always dreamed of building my retirement home. The land was passed down to me from my parents, and I've always loved spending weekends there, soaking in the sound of the waves and the fresh ocean breeze. So I set out on my trip. 2 months flew by, and I came back home full of memories and excited for the future. But when I got to my property, I couldn't believe my eyes. There was a brand new cottage standing on my land. I immediately started digging into what happened. Turns out my neighbor Bob, who also happens to be the president of the HOA, thought that since I was gone for so long, I'd lost interest in the land. He used his position to file some shady paperwork and started building a rental cottage for tourists on my property. I was furious. How could he do this? I tried talking to him, but he just brushed me off, saying I had no proof and that there was nothing I could do about it. Oh, and that I was too old to own such an expensive and big piece of land anyway. What this jerk didn't know is that I have a younger brother, Alex, who's 10 years younger than me. Growing up, since our dad worked like a horse to provide for us and give us a good education, I was like a second father to Alex. My brother Alex worked his way up from being a patrol officer to becoming the deputy police chief in our city. We've always been close, and I knew I could count on him. I called him up and explained the situation in detail. He immediately understood how serious it was and promised to help. The next day, we met on my property. Alex brought a team of detectives and real estate experts with him. They started gathering evidence of Bob's illegal activities. Alex explained that aside from illegally taking over my land, Bob might be involved in serious crimes, including forging documents and abusing his position. Alex contacted the city authorities and requested all the permits and paperwork Bob used to start building the cottage. Turns out many of them were either fake or obtained fraudulently. On top of that, we found out Bob had used HOA funds to finance the construction, which is straight up illegal. During the investigation, it came to light that Bob had been forging signatures of other HOA members and using shell companies to launder money. Alex and his team conducted searches at Bob's home and office, seizing documents and electronic files. Once we had enough evidence, Alex arrested Bob on charges of fraud, forgery, and illegal land seizure. The news spread quickly, and the whole town was shocked to learn that their HOA president was involved in such criminal activities. Thanks to my brother's hard work, the case against Bob was solid and irrefutable. In court, he was found guilty on all charges. He was sentenced to several years in prison and ordered to pay back all the damages he caused to me and other residents. After all the legal stuff was settled, the residents of our neighborhood held an emergency meeting and voted in a new HOA board. The new leadership promised transparency and honesty in managing the community's affairs. As for me, after the court case was done, I officially became the owner of the new cottage on my land. I decided not to sell it, but to keep it for myself and my family. Now I've got a beautiful home by the ocean where I can spend my retirement enjoying the view and the fresh sea air. I'm incredibly grateful to my brother for his help and support. OP's very lucky to have a good brother, or things could have turned out very differently and much more difficult. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.